Yeah, I mean, I have no clue about next year. Well, I would be surprised if everything stays the same for next year, since we did manage to fail to qualify out of Swiss for 2 years in a row.
Today was the last day at the World 2024 Swiss stage, and I'm in the presence of Mikyx of G2 Esports in this interview sponsored by Holy. Unfortunately, after a heartbreak of a loss against BLG, unfortunately also a repeat of last year. Just first of all, I mean, tell me how are you feeling after this?
Yeah, I mean, it feels quite disappointing because I felt like we were much better than what we showed during this tournament. I think especially in the T1 HLE series, I felt like we played way below our level, even against Weibo. I think we were just lucky they were also even worse than us because we were just like kind of bad this whole tournament. So yeah, it's for sure a shame, and yeah.
And I mean, a lot of people are talking about the results, obviously, and some people are saying it's a bad draw. But I know for you guys, you shoot higher than just having a lucky draw, right? What would you attribute it to? Rather, do you think it's actually like a bit on the draw, or is it just underperformance from you guys?
I mean, I think it's for sure a bit of both because I feel like if we got to win today, I feel like we could fix our shit in time because we would have one more week of actually practicing. So in that sense, it was a bit unlucky, I guess. If BLG is even the best team, that is like still here, and maybe other teams are even better. So never know. But yeah, on paper it was like a bit unlucky. But then again, yeah, if you can't win them, then we shouldn't really have that much of a chance afterwards. Even though I feel like we had the potential to win it all. So yeah, that just blows, I think, because what we showed was pretty pathetic.
And I mean, you talking about how bad the showing was and about the issues that you had to fix and stuff, but what were even those issues in your opinion? Like, what was the catalyst that led you to this defeat and those other defeats against T1 and HLE as well?
I would say against, well, T1 specifically, I would say that we were just not. I guess HLE kind of similar. We weren't really playing on side lanes enough. We were kind of just like grouping mid, and I feel like that's a bit due to nerves or something. Because usually in scrims we were good at that, but then again in scrims we just didn't have very what's it called productive games. Because a lot of games we either like lost a bit early and then we like shut down or didn't like stop communicating as much as we would, for example, on stage, so then we couldn't practice in certain situations. But yeah, just in general, I feel like our drafts were maybe not the greatest as well. Like especially today, game 1 versus BLG, I feel like draft was kind of like hard. Yeah, I think that was a hard game to win.
And I mean, like speaking of that as well, I just want to ask you because everyone was criticizing the Ori Nocturne focus as well. I mean, was this something you agreed on like before today's match with your team and stuff? And what was the reasoning behind wanting to run back this comp even though it didn't work in the previous games?
I mean, a lot of it basically had to do that we didn't want to give it to the enemy team because we just felt like it's a very strong combo. I think we were just very bad at utilizing it. I think we were kind of just like praying that they misstep instead of actually forcing stuff on the enemies when they're split up. I feel we were just like kind of afraid to pull the trigger, and if you played against it, usually we would struggle. So that was kind of the main reason why we just decided to pick it again. And I feel like we should have pivoted once we had the Oriana and they just picked like Skarner Jax because Nocturne's not very good into, well, at least Jax is quite hard. And yeah, I guess the Nico ban was also a bit useless. But other than that, yeah.
And I mean, especially after game 1, looking at like the player cams and everything, it looked like you guys were already almost defeated. Like it looked like everyone was so tilted, and still you managed to come back in game 2. Like, can you walk me through how was the team, morally speaking, like throughout the entire best of 5? Because like it started really poorly, right? Then you bounced back. Third game was really close as well, and I mean, I think a lot of people will agree that you could have and should have maybe taken the win as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think game 1 was just like a bit of a rough one from draft already, so we were kind of just like thinking about what we can do for next game to not repeat that, and that's kind of what we talked about because it felt like at least we still found some good plays afterwards when we were behind to try to get back into the game. Like on side lanes we got some decent picks onto Kaisa and stuff. So we were just basically saying, yeah, I think we played like decent. If we just fix draft, I think we win those. So then we kind of fixed draft for game 2 and we won those pretty convincingly, I would say. And then game 3 was basically just like a very close game. I feel like every fight could have gone either way. So it came down to small details, but in the end they were better. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, do you have like a specific regret, I guess, about this best of 3? Like one particular thing that you're thinking back towards and you think is like maybe one of the things that you would have changed if you could play it again?
I mean, I think a lot of it probably from draft for game 1. I feel like we could have for sure, drafted to counter their champs instead of just drafting for a combo, and because we're scared of them doing it, even though they already picked their jungler, for example, so we didn't actually have to pick Nocturne. But we maybe just like over-expecting the thing a bit, or thought it was too strong. So maybe that, and maybe for last game, could have thought of potentially banning Ezreal instead of MF, because Taric is way better into MF than Ezreal. Because we kind of knew we were going to go Taric on 5 or 4, I think. So yeah, those are the 2 regrets that I can think of right now from draft perspective. I think for the game, I would have to rewatch, but there was for sure a lot of cases where we just took fights that were not favorable.
I guess, like, speaking of that, like one of the main points that people will look back upon is the Nasher in game 3, right? Like after you win that fight and you rush Nasher and then everything falls apart after that.
I think for sure that one is like the biggest regret, because there should have been for sure a winning fight for us. I think it started very badly, where I got chunked already and we're just tanking Nash and taking free damage. I feel like if we just turned before even starting Nash, we probably just killed him because they had no flashes, I think, for the majority of people. So yeah, that's for sure a big one. Yeah, I kind of forgot that happened, yeah.
I mean, was that like a team call? Was it a specific person making the call? Like, what happened there?
I think we just kind of, I don't know like who said what, but like we decided to go Nash, and then we were planning to just me hit it so I can heal everyone up, and then we also wanted to turn at the same time when they were walking up. So it started off with me not going insta on the Nash to start hitting it and healing people. So I got caught, and then I went to Nash when everyone else was turning. So I just kept hitting Nash to try to heal people, but they were just like hiding us around a little bit, and we lost. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, speaking of game 3 as well, a lot of people will also look back at the pause, right? That was obviously like a big turning point as well, because that fight, like when L completely pops off on Ezreal and then the pause happens and you're stuck here, not able to talk for like what 15 minutes it was almost on stage. Like, how was it after that? Like, do you feel like that's one thing that also made the team fall apart even harder, because after that the game ended pretty quickly as well?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think after the pause they got Nash, and I'm not sure if we can do much about that. But yeah, we were kind of just thinking that we would win the next fight because they used all the flashes in that fight, I think, except one. So yeah, I mean, we for sure probably didn't make the best decisions, especially with the TP, and then they just turned the TP and one-shot him. But I think also with our comp, it's kind of hard to start a fight. I think it's up to them to go into us, but they don't even have to do that because they have Ezreal. So in general, it was just a bit awkward when we were behind to try to force our way back into the game, except by playing side lane with Ryze maybe. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, people will look back at this, and especially because for G2, everyone expects good results at Worlds and MSI and stuff, and they will probably look at this year as a failure, probably, and they will forget that you won all the splits and you had 3-0 against TS at MSI. But how do you personally like take in this year right now? I mean, obviously, I know that it's probably soured because you just lost, but do you still think that 2024 was a productive year for G2?
I would still say it was quite a failure. Yeah, I think winning EU is not a big thing to be proud of. I mean, it's nice, right? But ultimately, if you just go out in Swiss 2 years in a row, it's like, a failure. And winning one best of 5 was nice against top esports, for example, but that kind of didn't really amount to anything as well. I feel like we could have won games against T1 and basically every team at the tournament, but I think, yeah, just in the end, we were just not good enough, yeah.
And I mean, also it's a hard question, obviously, but like, how do you feel about how you played personally? Because I know, especially in game 1, like some people were criticizing you because you had some moments that weren't the best, I guess. But like, are you still happy with how you played? Do you feel like maybe you could have done better instead?
I mean, for sure, I could have done better, but I think this series was at least better than my other performances. I think in the other games I was playing quite bad. Just in general, it was not a great tournament, but I think the Rakan game felt nice. I feel like I should probably pick that champ a bit more. It felt very easy to like start fights or just like be useful in the game. And I think the Terry game I could probably play a lot better as well. I think I got kind of one-shot a lot at the start of the fights, so that was not optimal. But yeah, I think the Rail game, I think I had one really bad fight at Herald, but I think besides that, I think it was just kind of way too hard to play well into the enemy comp. I mean, we tried to get some picks on the Kai'Sa, and it kind of worked. But yeah, I think it was just a hard one, yeah.
Do you see a silver lining from this tournament and the year in general?
No.
Well, that's brutally honest, at least. But yeah, I mean, what do you see for your future now and the future of G2 as well after this? Because no matter what happens now, right, you have to get back up for next year. You have to focus on the future as well and see how it's going to play out. So do you have like some thoughts about that already?
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue about next year. Well, I would be surprised if everything stays the same for next year, since we did manage to fail to qualify out of Swiss for 2 years in a row. But it's quite a disappointment. I think, yeah, I'll be surprised if we just run it back again, right? The third time's the charm. Yeah. But yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, also just last question on that. Obviously, like fans do put a lot of pressure on the team as well, and I mean, people will have different opinions, right? Even for like teams like Fnatic as well, they will always say like, oh, this member is not playing well or whatever, and this member is not playing well. Does this kind of opinion like affect you guys as a team? Like, do you think that this kind of stuff like might have affected how you played as well, or is it not a factor at all?
I mean, for me, not really, because I am my own harshest critic. So whatever I read is usually not as bad as what I think already. I'm not sure for the rest of my teammates. I hope they don't get affected even if they read like shit like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, of course there's like always thoughts about what's gonna happen the year after. But yeah, especially when it's like this close to the end of the year. So for sure that doesn't help in terms of performances when you have to think about what I'm actually gonna do next year, like if I don't perform and all that.
Yeah. All right. And we are running out of time, but just before we finish, do you have a last word for the fans out there and just anyone that follow you as well?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I had to witness another failure from us. Not making out of Swiss is quite a BG. I think, despite the draw, I think it doesn't actually matter. I think if we were good, we would win our first 2 series already, like HLE and T1. I think they were not great in those series. So for sure it was ours to win. And yeah, I mean, it's a shame that this is how the year ended. I felt like that this year could be, you know, one of the closest chances we had. So that for sure sucks, right? But I hope you keep supporting everyone.
Well, Mikyx, in any case, thank you so much for talking with us. I know it's probably one of the worst moments of the year for you right now. So all I can say is that I really hope that you'll be able to bounce back in the future, save for the entire team, obviously. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you in better circumstances next year. For now, I hope that you have a good rest and see you soon. And for viewers, just as a reminder, we are sponsored by Holy Tour, the event. Make sure to use the code SE5 at checkout for €5 discount, and see you soon.